Well, hello to everyone. I hope everyone is having a good week. I'm pretty devastated about this. Madison and I really missed being at New Hope, and we were excited to get to see everyone. We're sad that our wedding shower was canceled, and we're sad that we're not getting to see people at services, but I know that it's for the best, and we hope everyone is doing good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give my sermon that I planned on giving tomorrow. So since last October, our church at New Albany has been looking for a minister. And so about every other week, and sometimes back-to-back weekends, I've been filling in doing the preaching. And one day, a member of the church came up to me and said, I have a sermon request. And this person wanted me to talk about stress and anxiety. And they said that they wanted this because, obviously as a Christian, we're supposed to trust in the Lord, that know the Lord's going to take care of everything, that everything's fine. But then obviously you have to make sure you do your part, and you have to make sure you do good on your test, you do good in school, or you do your job well. And so you can't just sit still and just trust God. You have to do your part. So they want to know, how do you find that balance of, trusting God, but also not worrying so much, but making sure you get what you need to get done. And so I had planned on talking about this a long time ago. And it's amazing how this sermon came right at this time. So what we're going to talk about is stress, anxiety, and depression. And I think this is a sermon that everybody needs. This is something that everybody struggles with on some kind of level. Every single person in the world has some kind of stress and some kind of anxiety and worries about something. If you're like me, that's not very much. Some people, it's all the time, get so anxious so easily, so stressed so easily. So what we're going to do is we're just going to talk about how to deal with that. So, the title of the sermon is Jesus Talking to You? And we're going to get to that later. But we have Bible verses like Matthew 6:25 that tell us, Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Philippians 4:6-7 says, Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Isaiah 41:10 says, Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. So we see these Bible verses, and they tell us not to be anxious. Don't be anxious. Don't be anxious about anything. Fear not. And if you're like me, sometimes you get that sense of, well, I'm a Christian, I'm never supposed to worry, right? God's got me, I'm not supposed to ever worry. But that's not realistic. As humans, we naturally worry. We are naturally anxious. And that's a good thing, because it means we care about things and we want things to go right. And so what these Bible verses are doing is not telling you, hey, if you're anxious, you're wrong, you're messing up. What these Bible verses are trying to do is comfort us by saying, look, this is why you shouldn't have to be anxious, or you don't have to worry, because Jesus takes care of us. So what I want to do is I want to do a little illustration to set this up. So I have two things full of water right here. And if you notice both of these, I don't think anyone would argue with me that this one is bigger, that this one weighs more. So if I'm holding this one, right, this one's heavier. This one's more of a load. But if I put this one down, I'm still having to hold this one. Which one's heavier to me? This one is, because I'm holding on to it. If I took a little bitty piece of water, little thing of water, and I was holding on to it, and I had these two sitting here, which one's heavier to me? This one. The reason I share that is because it's not about how big the stress is or how big the thing is in your life. It's about being able to put it down and to let it go. So that's what I want to talk about this morning, is how to let go of stress, or how to get rid of it, how to not have it so much, and how to not worry about it. So first thing I want to do is I want to share one of my favorite songs. It's not a song that's in the normal songbook, but it's called Still. And I just want to read the lyrics. It says, Hide me now under your wings, cover me within your mighty hands. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still and know you are God. I love this song because of the words, the message that it sends. But right at the very beginning, it says, hide me now. And I love that because what I think about in my life is that this is a plea we should all make to God, to hide ourselves and let God be seen. Because if God is seen through us, everything will be okay. Everything will be taken care of. Then it goes on, it says, under your wings, cover me within your mighty hands. Knowing that God takes care of us and is there for us, that's one of the greatest benefits of being a Christian, knowing that peace is there, knowing that God is taking care of us, knowing that God has us, that He is loving us and giving us everything we need. But this is where I really love the song. It says, when the oceans rise and thunders roar. Now, it's using an illustration of water, right? When the oceans rise and thunders roar, right? It's a scary feeling. But what it's saying is when things get tough, when things get stressful, when you get anxious, when all those things come, it says, I will soar with you above the storm. Now, one thing to point out is that it says when the oceans rise and thunders roar. It doesn't say if the oceans rise or maybe oceans will rise. It says when the oceans rise and thunders roar, meaning there will be tough times. The oceans are going to rise and thunders will roar. There will be tough times. There will be stressful times. There will be things that make us anxious. So you have to know that's coming. But what it says is when that comes, I will soar with you above the storm. So the issue is not how do I get rid of anxiety? How do I get rid of stress? How do I not have those things? Those things are there, but it's about being able to soar with Jesus above it. Being able to rise above it. It says, I will soar with you above the storm. Meaning here's the waves, the oceans, the storm. And we can sit there above all of it with Jesus. If we have the right heart, if we have the right mindset, if we have the relationship that we need to have. Because it says, Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still and know you are God. And the song is called Still. And the very last line says, I will be still and know you are God. So I want to think about that word still. In Psalms 46:10 it says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. So what does that term mean, be still? One of the hardest things to do is to get a child to be still. To get a child to be still because they're so anxious, they're so wild, they're so crazy, and you just want them to be still, you want them to calm down. When our lives, with our minds, and with our stress, and with our anxiety, it's so hard for us to just be still. To just sit back for a moment, to just think, and wonder if what we're worrying about is so bad. Or to sit back and to stop and think, okay, God's going to take care of this. Being able to be still. What I want to do next is I want to look at a Bible story that you've heard probably hundreds of times in your life. A story that's so popular with VBSs, it's so popular for children, and it's just so popular in general. But we're going to look at Jesus calming the storm in Mark 4:35 through 41. It says, on that day when evening had come, he said to them, let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And the other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion, and they awoke him, and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And he awoke, and rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm, and he said to them, Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? And they were filled with great fear, and said to one another, Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Now this is a story you know so well, that you've heard so many times, you've heard so many applications from it. And just everything that we've looked at so far, I just want to make a few points. And the first one's the most obvious point that you could give for stress, for anxiety, for any sermon really, is that Jesus is in control. He always is. Jesus is in control. One thing I want to point out from this story that you looked at is we focus so much on Jesus calming the storm and getting to the end, but I want to look at the very beginning, when the very first verse, in verse 35, Jesus said to them, let us go across to the other side. Right at the beginning, Jesus said, hey, let's go across to the other side. And so, if Jesus said, let's go across to the other side, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to go to the other side. Now, it's easy for us to sit back here now and to think about that and see that. But if Jesus says something, it's going to be happen. And we can connect this back to what we looked at from Matthew at the very beginning when Jesus said, do not be anxious about anything. Because he said, even if God takes care of the birds, isn't he going to take care of you? And so we can know if Jesus says he's going to do something, it's going to happen. He said, look, we're going to go from this side to this side. We're going to go to the other side. He didn't say, hey, it's going to be smooth sailing and we're going to go straight there. And that's just like our lives. We're right here and Jesus says that you're going to get to make it to heaven. Doesn't mean you just walk an easy little path. That means storms are going to come. Issues are going to come. Just like in this story, all these bad things come. But in the end, Jesus is in control. Everything in our life, everything we're so worried about, everything we're so stressed about isn't even going to matter one day. Because Jesus is in control. And we get to go home with him one day. The second point is Matthew 19:26 and Philippians 4:13. These are kind of Bible verses that people would go to if they're stressed out or to encourage themselves as Christian. Matthew 19:26 says that with God all things are possible, or with God nothing is impossible, however you want to word it. Then we know Philippians 4:13 it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I want to point out a couple of things from those verses. First off, it says, with God all things are possible. With God. Meaning that God is the one that makes it possible, not us. And I think so much that we get so stressed and so anxious because we think we have to rely on ourselves, but we forget that God is the one that made us. God made us to do what he wanted him. God made us to do what he wants us to do. God made us for a purpose. With God, things won't be impossible. And it says, I can do in Philippians 4:13, meaning that no, you can't just sit back and God's going to take care of you and Jesus is going to take care of you. You just sit still and nothing happens. Meaning I can do, meaning I work, but because of God, because of Christ, I can get done when I need to get done. And then all things. When people look at Philippians 4:13 and both of these verses, with God all things are possible, or I can do all things, and people look at that verse and they think, well, I can literally never have to have any sadness. Everything's fine. Everything's going to work out. I can do whatever I want to do. But all things to us is not the same thing to all things is God. All things to God means the path to heaven. I can do all things, meaning I can do what I need to do to get to heaven. That's all things. Not all this other stuff that we worry about so much. I can do what I need to get done. And the third verse is that stress and anxiety are sometimes good things. Now, sometimes you can be stressed and you can be anxious about things that are going to be sad, that will be difficult. But if you ever just be still, like the song says, like Jesus said, if you ever just be still, a lot of times if you think about what stresses you out so much and what makes you so anxious, a lot of times they're good things. You can think about school. Getting stressed out about school, whether you're, in elementary, in middle school, in high school, in college, working on masters, working on doctorate, wherever level of school you're at, that does cause stress. It does cause anxiety, but it's a good thing, meaning you care about it, but then also you have that opportunity. You have that opportunity to get education. You have that opportunity to learn what you need to learn, to be around the people that you need to be around, to learn the skill that you need to learn to help the world, to help God, to help people. Whatever it is, that's a good thing. You think about your job, and you can get so stressed and so anxious about your job. We're just lucky enough to have a job to worry about, to be stressed about, to be anxious about. Just knowing that you have that you have something to stress about, you have something to be anxious about. Then you think about your family. Maybe as a parent, you're stressed about your children. You're lucky enough to have children. You think about having parents. You're lucky enough to have parents or to have grandparents or to have sisters, to have friends. If you're stressed about other people, you're stressed about so-and-so might die or so-and-so I don't want them to get sick. Or I'm stressed about this. It makes me anxious worrying about my child doing this. Is you're lucky enough to get to have those people in your life that you can love, that you have. And then, obviously, if you think about stress and anxiety is a good thing. If you have stress and you're anxious about different things, that's a good thing because it means you care. If you didn't have anything to stress about, if you never had anything to worry about, that would mean you have nothing meaningful in your life. But if you are stressed, if you are anxious, that means you have meaningful things in your life, and you can appreciate them and know that it's worth it. And so with the coronavirus being the big thing right now, and you think about this stress and anxiety, you can just think about all the different good things that come from this. If you're on Facebook, you're seeing 200,000 different posts every day about so-and-so saying their opinion and so-and-so saying their opinion, and this is why Corona can be a good thing, and this and this. And really, if you sit back, it can be a good thing. Because one thing that I've thought about is never in my life have I been stopped from being able to go to church service. Never in my life. And we say that all the time, how lucky we are to have that freedom, but never in my life have I had to be stopped from going to church service until now, until this. And it makes me think, wow, I've been so blessed to never ever have to worry about getting to miss church. The only way I'll miss is if I'm sick or if I'm not there, but it's going to be there. And now, that's kind of taken away from us, and you can sit back and think, wow, how blessed we are to get that opportunity. You can think about how this can be a good thing. I know for me, I haven't been home in 3 months. And because of that, I'm getting to be home. You can think about it in your job. Some people are getting to spend more time with their kids than they ever would have even thought possible. Some people are getting to spend more time with loved ones, with their wives or husbands, or with family members. Some people are getting a break that they desperately need. People are coming together, working together for a cause. Whenever things get stressed, whenever you're anxious, you can always think about positives. And you think about the Corona right now, we have more time than ever to sit back and to read our Bible and to pray and to talk to the people we need to talk to. We've never had time like that. If you're like me, there's so much going on all the time. And now, we kind of got, some people just don't have anything to do, and you have that opportunity. And then you think about the Corona, how it can make us appreciate the different jobs that people have, like doctors and nurses and what they do. And you think about policemen and firefighters and anybody who works in any kind of field like that, how this doesn't matter to them. Their job is still happening. How people make sacrifices for us. How we can see the good in any situation. And the fourth thing I want to look at is depression. If you notice this throughout this whole thing, I've been focused on stress and anxiety because stress and anxiety is something that everybody has. But depression is a whole different thing. But all three of them go together. The first level is you get stressed, and then it makes you be anxious. And sometimes it can lead to depression. And I'm not a doctor, a psychiatrist, or anything like that. So I'm not an expert in depression, but as far as I know, that's something I've never had to worry about. And it's something that some people don't have to worry about, but it's something that a lot of people have to worry about. And I can't give advice on that. I can't tell you what to do. I think a lot of times even doctors and the most trained people can't tell you what to do. But I know that I've seen this on Facebook and I've seen it through other social media things, is that if you rearrange the word depression, it says I pressed on. Whatever it is that gets you depressed, whatever it is that gets you so low you can't go, don't think you can go any higher. I promise you can. Because just like the song says, we can soar with Jesus. We can press on. We can get through a tough time and it'll make us better than we ever thought we could be, or stronger than we ever thought we could be. And then the fifth one is be still. If I could just sum up this whole thing, how do I deal with stress? How do I deal with anxiety? How do I deal with depression? It would probably just to be still. To just sit and to think. Is what I'm worried about really something I need to worry about? Or is what I'm worried about really just a good thing and I'm blessed with it? Or is it something I can get through and I just need to calm down? I just need to be still. Because that's something that we do a lot of times. Then the title of our sermon was, Is Jesus Talking to You? And that's how I want to end. When you look at the story of Jesus calming the storm, obviously the story shows the power of Jesus and how he was able to stop the storm. That's kind of the way we take it a lot of times. But one thing that I've thought about and I've read and tried to figure it out is, do you think Jesus was talking to the water in this story. When he said, "Peace, be still," do you think he was talking to the water? Because I know that Jesus could have stopped the storms without saying anything. That's something Jesus easily could have done. And so was he talking to the storms, or was he talking to the people, saying, "Peace, be still. Don't you know who I am?" And he even said, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" I think that's something that Jesus could ask you. He could say, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" Because Jesus can get us out of anything. And he might be looking at you and saying, "Peace, be still." That's why the main thing I wanted to look at was to be still. Because is Jesus talking to you with this sermon? Well, I thank everybody for listening. I hope everyone has a good rest of the week. And I hope everyone can be safe through all this. And I just know that this is a time that we can just turn